Okay, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Suba Sernani and I'm speaking for Southern Negation. Is anyone not ready? Everyone's good? Mm-hmm. Alright, with that, timer will start on my first word. AKSB is proud to negate the resolution. Before we begin our argument, let's define a few terms. First is encryption. Jane 21 defines encryption as the process of converting information into a secret code to prevent unauthorized access, which makes data unreadable. Second is lawful access. The FBI defines lawful access as the legal ability of law enforcement to obtain evidence from digital service providers or devices. Our sole argument is the economy. A tech boom has begun. Levy 25 finds that the U.S. tech sector amassed over $420 billion in just 1 week, reaching a total value of $21 trillion. This is pivotal for the U.S., as Law 24 adds that tech innovation keeps America as the world's leading economy, contributing about 9% of global GDP while supporting over 9 million jobs. The tech industry alone accounts for half of national economic growth. However, affirming the resolution would derail this progress in 4 major ways. The first is backdoors. Backdoors are secret digital entry points that let the government bypass encryption to access private data. Tolson 20 tells us the United States lawful access would require technology companies to weaken access or provide a backdoor to their secure systems. Campbell 22 explains that creating and securing backdoor systems is a costly process, especially for smaller businesses who need to constantly defend against cyber attacks. This burden would crush small business companies that cannot afford constant protection, leaving only large tech giants standing. History proves, as Campbell continues, weakening data confidentiality can severely impact economies. For example, when Australia passed its TOLA Act, one company lost over $700 million, and if applied to the US tech market, the impact would reach tens of billions in losses. Indeed, small tech firms drive American innovation, but if they cannot afford compliance costs, they will shut down. The second way affirming derails is by driving companies overseas. When encryption is weakened, businesses leave. Castro 20 quantifies that subverting commercial encryption undermines U.S. competitiveness since the United States does not control encryption technology globally. Companies can simply move to countries that protect data privacy. This has happened in the past, as Chen 20 finds that after Hong Kong passed a law allowing police to seize private servers, private internet access withdrew all its servers from the region to avoid privacy risk. If the US followed suit, tech firms would relocate abroad, taking jobs, innovation, and tax revenue with them, undermining both local and national economies. The third way is by cyber attacks. With less encryption, it provides a target for cyber attacks. West 23 writes that laws that force organizations and individuals to weaken encryption leave data and communications vulnerable to unauthorized access and breaches. Critically, cyber attacks are detrimental towards smaller businesses. Johnson 24 finds that 60% of small companies go out of business within 6 months after falling victim to a data breach or cyber attack. The fourth is loss of global trust. The result is that the United States' decline empowers China and destabilizes the world. Critically, Wheeler 21 states that the only way to compete with China is to out-innovate them, not regulate or weaken our own tech industry. A weaker tech sector means losing ground in the global innovation race. Fry 22 finds that the United States could miss out on trillions of dollars in economic growth if it fails to confront the growing technology threat posed by China. For these 4 reasons, Harrison concludes that small tech businesses make up more than 50% of the tech industry in the United States, meaning that if small businesses decline, the economy gets worse. There are 2 impacts to this. First is poverty. Nodori 10 tells us that for every % decrease in GDP, there's a 2% increase in poverty. And the second is lives. Small businesses contribute a large part of innovation. The U.S. Senate committee finds that small businesses are key to driving innovations as they produce 16 times the amount of innovation compared to large enterprises. Innovation is crucial for saving lives. Our Barnsley evidence finds that empirically every dollar spent on research and development returns $405 in wider societal and economic gain. The result of innovation has saved 40.7 million lives, which is why you negate. Okay, would you like to use the table card?
Oh, yeah, sure, that would be great.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm Joseph Holland. I'm the first speaker for Myers Park on the affirmative. I know my partner's ready. Are my opponents ready?
Yes.
Okay, judges, are you ready as well? Encryption might be a tool that protects privacy, but it's also a shield for criminal activity. Criminals, including terrorists, child exploiters, and drug traffickers, are all being safeguarded by encryption. People are being turned into victims every day, and there is no tool that helps this more than encryption. Therefore, we strongly affirm the resolve that the United States federal government should require technology companies to provide lawful access to encrypted communications. We have one argument: cracking down on crime. Right now, without lawful access to encrypted communications, many bad actors are avoiding being caught after committing terrible crimes. Let's look to the FBI in 2025. They say that in today's world, criminals plan and carry out their crimes almost entirely through electronic communications. Access to digital evidence and online threat information is critical for law enforcement to stop threats, arrest criminals, and protect victims. Because of encryption, providers are unable to deliver information to law enforcement about illegal and egregiously harmful activity. Warrant-proof encryption has created lawless digital spaces where bad actors are sexually exploiting children, conducting human trafficking, sharing terrorist propaganda, and distributing deadly drugs. Encrypted communication access is needed soon. Crime is skyrocketing now. The FBI again reports in 2025 that their 2024 Internet Crime Report reported crimes went up 33% from 2023. Then, without lawful access, law enforcement agencies have a blind spot and you let crime run rampant. Haggerty 14, in particular, the emergence of default encryption settings and encrypted devices and networks designed to increase security and privacy leave law enforcement in the dark. Imagine if a detective had a search warrant, but he couldn't even open the door. That is what encryption does now. Encrypted communications are stopping crime from being solved because the information is going incomplete. The FBI again reports that increasingly, even armed with a court order based on probable cause, we are too often unable to access potential evidence. Affirming solves this problem. We've seen it modeled in other countries. Europol 21. In 2019, the FBI and Australian police created a fake encrypted phone company called Anon. Criminals thought it was completely secure, so they used it to plan drug deals, weapon trafficking, and money laundering. What they didn't know was that the messages were being monitored the whole time. This operation, called the Trojan Shield, led to more than 800 arrests, 700 house searches, and the seizure of tons of drugs, weapons, and $48 million in cash. This is real proof that when you vote affirmative, when you let law enforcement access these encrypted systems, they can take down global crime networks, make real change, and protect victims. Another example is in Belgium. Cyto 21 sees that the infiltration of an encrypted messaging service by Belgian authorities led to a record cocaine haul. They were able to dismantle these drug trafficking rings and seize 28 tons of cocaine. Giving government access to encrypted communications saves millions from being victims of crime. Town 23 tells you that every year countless of lives are lost as a result of organized crime. Drug-related health problems and violence, firearm deaths, and the unscrupulous methods and motives of human traffickers and migrant smugglers are all a part of this. Each year, millions of victims are affected as a result of the activities of organized crime groups. However, this impact is twofold. Additionally, access to encrypted communications will save thousands from drug overdoses. Let's look to Evolve 24. They tell you that overdose deaths have surpassed 100,000 for the third time in a straight year. The nation remains mired by an intractable pandemic fueled by the potent drug trade. Thus, to make real change in the world, to protect victims, and to save lives, Myers Park is so proud to urge an affirmative ballot.
Okay.
I'm open.
Yeah, Sam. Let me just turn my phone. You want to? Okay.
Here, I can take mine off.
Okay.
Is that work time needed?
I know.
No, not good.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
All right. Timer starts now. Can I get a first question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Let's go to your argument about crime, right? So you tell us that with lawful access, we're able to catch more crime. But let's look to the UK, for example. When they did that, when they allowed for lawful access, it backfired on them to the point where child exploitation actually went up. So if that's true, how do you guarantee for a fact that adding lawful access will actually improve the situation?
Yeah, so we would say that adding lawful access improves the situation because, one, you've seen this work in the status quo. In other countries, the UK went up due to other causes. It's not due to them having access to encrypted communications. We would tell you that when you look to Australia, you look to Belgium, you see that the affirmative works immediately. The minute you affirm, the FBI gets to run task force in America and other countries like they do. They get to make real change, they get to protect victims, and they get to save lives.
Real quick, back on the UK, A point, can you explain me what these other factors were exactly?
Yeah, so we would say that the other factors were, one, Brexit was a huge factor. This cost of economic downturn drove a lot of people to crime. But we would say another factor is new social medias that we're in. We would say that it's unreasonable to assume that this law enforcement having access to encrypted communications drove crime, because that's something that deters criminals. Being able to be tracked obviously deters a criminal. Can I take a question, Alex? Yeah, so on this point about backdoors harming all these businesses, how do you know that the model of this resolution being affirmed is a backdoor?
Okay, yeah, so what our argument is that backdoors will be implemented in the affirmative world because we have evidence that says that the US law mandates that companies have to require backdoors if there was lawful access, which means that when you have to implement these backdoors, the situation gets uniquely worse, as we come in our argument.
Okay, do you want a question?
Yeah, of course, I can go on a question. Okay. So let's go to your argument about the, let's go to your argument about the overdose, right? So
Yep.
about these drugs. So explain to me, oh, actually on trafficking as a whole. So why can't these traffickers just go to other servers and websites if they know that there's going to be encryption added or
like American drug traffickers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would say anything used for a crime in America falls under American jurisdiction. Right when you affirm, right when you allow these encrypted accesses, that's when any crime committed under American jurisdiction that we can get encrypted access to is
My
solved.
question specifically is why can't these traffickers go to other servers where American lawful access is not there? Why can't they just go in?
What do you mean?
Why can't they just
go?
why can't they just navigate to other servers if they find out that the US law, the federal government is using lawful access?
If they're using lawful access, we would, one, say that there are so many people collaborating with the US right now, and the US can serve a warrant to any server that's accessed in the United States of America that falls under their jurisdiction and purview.
If they're collaborating right now, then why is this exactly a problem?
The other countries are collaborating, not the US countries. We're not getting from the US, but we are seeing other countries internationally collaborating.
Okay, we're gonna take breaks starting now.
Okay, Judge, we took 47 seconds. Just a reintroduction, I'm Aditya Venkatachala, I'm second speaker for Ardrey, Kell. So, before I start off-time roadmap, I'm going to go on our case, down their case. Is everyone ready? Cool. Timer starts in 3, 2, 1. First, on our cases, judges. The easiest place to vote in this round is our argument about the economy. Right now, the US is leading in the tech sector in the world, and this number is only going up. However, the affirmation causes small businesses to collapse for 2 reasons. First is backdoors. Remember, backdoors are secret digital entry points that the government can access. The reason why affirmation is bad, because small businesses have to implement backdoors. Our evidence tells you that small businesses will have to pay a lot of money for compliance costs, which is crucial because small businesses don't have this money. Now, on their case, their main point is on crime. They say that criminals use social media almost entirely to carry out their plans. But judges, ask yourself, how does the app solve for this? Law enforcement across the US already has powerful tools to fight crime. They don't need new ones like the app represents. Research by Upturn in 2020 finds that over 2,000 police agencies in all 50 states use mobile device forensic tools which can unlock searches and cell phones. These tools are used by daily local police, sheriffs, and even schools and prisons. While some claim these devices are expensive for smaller departments, the evidence shows that widespread adaptation is not as expensive. Big city polices like Las Vegas, Miami-Dade, and San Diego have spent not that much money on implementing this. Many agencies in the USA went under their budget even while owning these and using these devices. Put simply, every major law enforcement agency already owns and uses technology to access phones and digital data, which means affirming does practically nothing. Then they go on to talk about how other countries have made use of lawful access, but when the UK implemented them, we state that it increased crimes upon children. They say that that was not the only reason why crimes upon children went up, and it's because of economic downturn. This is exactly our point, because economic downturn happens in the AF world as our case reads. In this case, the UK cross-apply, they cross-apply so many points, like how it worked in other countries, cross-apply the UK scenario to the US. When the US economy goes down, as we state, then the people will act the same way they act in the UK. This is their empiric, so we technically prove that how if you vote AF, child crimes go up like the same way they did in the AF world or in the UK. Now, on their case, solutions exist and are used and are affordable to access encrypted platforms, and devices are existing in the status quo. Copy 20 say that we find widespread adaptation of mobile devices and forensic tools by law enforcement. And lawful access to encrypted communications is not vital to national security because independent actors can still utilize open source tech. Former FBI guidance for encryption included an endorsement of protective capabilities. Encryption technology is nearly ubiquitous today, and much of it is free and open source. Even if US companies are required to build encryption backdoors, foreign companies and independent coders will offer more secure products and services. According to Consumer Reports, 3.1 million smartphones were stolen in the US in 2013, nearly double stolen in 2012. Before reigniting crypto wars, even the FBI advised that encryption can help shield identity theft and other types of fraud. On their C2 of law enforcement and human trafficking, law enforcement across the US already has powerful tools, as I stated, meaning the app does not do anything to change it. Many agencies in the USA went under their budget while already stopping this. And lawful access in other countries, the UK backdoor, as we state, when UK implemented backdoors, their child endangerment issues went up and up and up. They start off by giving examples of full lawful access working in other countries, but this argument does not work the same when applied to the United States, as the Fourth Amendment states that it's lawful access backfires legally and morally. According to Jeffrey Wrestling of the American Action Forum, forcing platforms to monitor user data turns them into government agencies under the Fourth Amendment. That means any evidence they collect can be ruled unconstitutional, making it inadmissible in court. And if the very children they want to save, this evidence cannot be used in court. Encryption does not protect criminals. Encryption protects criminals. It doesn't protect criminals, it protects kids. As the Open Rights Group notes, that breaking encryption exposes everyone to hackers, stalkers, and abusers. Judge, if you want any of their impacts, you vote neg because of the economy.
We're going to take that 30 seconds. Okay, is anyone not ready? Okay, cool. Just off-time roadmap, I'm going to first defend my case, then I will be attacking the negative case. All right, time will begin on my first word. First of all, let's start on the affirmative case. Our opponents make 6 claims against this. In their first claim, they say that law enforcement already has alternatives to solve. We'd say this is fundamentally wrong. The affirmative will solve because law enforcement cannot decrypt the content in 90% of the cases where they've encountered encrypted communications right now. The phones are not the same. On their second response, we would disagree that the American economy will go down, but that's their contention, so we'll get to that later. But this is not the UK. There are other reasons that their economy went down, or that their crime went up. Like Joseph tells you about the other apps that were introduced that caused this. On their third response, they say like, oh, you're gonna have the phones. Having the phone is not the same thing as having the message, and there's other ways that people communicate. You're not always on your phone. Maybe you're like sending an email on your computer or something like that. Then, on their fourth response, first of all, again, the same response that we would say before. The other alternatives aren't solving because 90% of communications are not being solved because of encrypted communication that law enforcement has not been able to decrypt. On their fifth response, again, we're going to disagree that the American economy will go down because the UK is completely different. And then on their last response, we would say that this is not going to turn websites and companies into government agencies. It's not constantly monitoring. It's giving a door then closing. It's only giving encryption and data when requested. It's not just saying, we're going to always surveil you. That's obviously not what's going to happen. Then, also, it's not going to expose us to all hackers. It's going to actually save us, but we're going to get onto that now. Switch to the negative case right now. law enforcement doesn't have the resources to decrypt communications. I've given you the evidence on this already, but law enforcement cannot decrypt 90% of the cases where they encounter encrypted communications right now. When you affirm, you give them access to the encrypted communications, and they solve for these 90% of cases that they can't solve right now. That is the immediate impact that you get from affirming. But then, again, there's no proof that backdoors will be used, but even so, we'd say, first of all, on cybersecurity, law enforcement isn't even seeking a backdoor. As the FBI themselves say, law enforcement is not seeking a backdoor to access information. We are asking the tech companies to maintain the ability to access readable content and provide us with the content when a judge has determined the enforcement has met the required evidentiary standards. Then, second, we would say lawful access doesn't even have to weaken cybersecurity. As Schneider, who is a security expert, says that tech companies could design apps in a way that allows law enforcement and security agencies access when they request it without compromising the integrity of the encryption. Then, our third response would say this is actually good affirming because it means that cybercrime reduces. Here's why. Cybercrime is exceptionally high right now. As Morgan says, if it were measured as a country, cybercrime would be the world's third largest economy, right after the US and China. The majority of cybercrime is through encrypted communications. Again, malware, phishing, and crypto miners account for 90% of all encrypted threats observed in the last analysis. So this means that when you affirm, you stop 90% of cyber attacks, so you're actually helping what they're trying to prevent. Then, on the economy specifically, we would say this doesn't really matter because the US tech is the global leader. Consumers aren't just going to abandon American companies. Tahir24 says the US leads global tech innovation, holding 36% of the market share. And Schofield 18 says you can't avoid US operating systems. You have Windows, Mac OS, and Android, which are all American. And ditching US tech companies is hard, especially American social media and search engines. Then, on the tech sector specifically, regulatory burdens have little impact. The US telecommunications companies already are required to provide readable content in response to a lawful court order. This isn't changing much. But other countries also have mandatory backdoors and haven't experienced decline. So countries like Australia, India, and Brazil have similar frameworks to address this and have not experienced any decline. Then, on their small businesses specifically, small businesses don't even use encryption. As Palladium 2025 says 17% of small businesses implement information security through data encryption. That is less than 20%. That is a small fraction. Then, on their impact specifically, I'm open for cross.
Yeah.
Do you want to go up? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
Okay. I'll take the first question.
Okay.
Start in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, so you talked mostly about just like how big businesses get like affected. Or like you guys say that small businesses don't even use encryption, right?
Yes, we give you the statistic of 17%.
Okay, yeah, we say that. I mean, our evidence in the case says that more than like a good amount of them use it. So
Okay.
let's just go with our evidence. If these small businesses get
Okay.
implemented with backdoors, will they be able to survive it?
If small businesses get backdoors,
The implementation back.
we would say they would survive it, and as we tell you, it would actually stop cyber crime because 90% of cybercrime is committed through encrypted communications.
But that's post-implementation, right? To implement it, they have to pay so much convenience fee, and they just can't catch up to it. So, like, at the implementation cost, how will they be able to stay afloat after paying millions of dollars?
I don't know if I'd agree that you have to give a convenience fee.
I mean, you have to constantly update, you have to implement it. Like, they don't just hand you a backdoor for free, right?
Yeah.
Lawful doesn't work like that.
I mean, sure, but I would say there's been experience around it, there's been innovation on how to create
Yeah, sure, for
backdoors.
big-
It's not like you're like building it from scratch.
Yeah, sure, for big companies. Again, backdoors were in
Yeah, big companies can share with small companies.
That's just not what, it's never happened before, right? I mean, like.
Yeah, because we don't have lawful access to encrypted communications right now. That's why it hasn't
Give me
happened.
one example when big companies shared encryption with small companies.
I'm not a tech expert, I can't tell you
Okay,
that.
but so it's never happened. Well, you just made a claim that it's happened.
It hasn't happened because we haven't had lawful access
Okay, well,
to
it's
encrypted
never happened. You
communications.
can't make that speculation. You can have a question.
Okay. Let's go into small businesses. What
Yeah.
year is your evidence of small business from?
Want me to find it? Okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
I can move on to a different question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, on your impact about innovation, does your evidence specifically talk about innovation in the tech sector, or is it about medical innovation?
Tech
Specifically?
sector.
And can you quantify how many people this affects? I know you said like $1 is like 5 lives or something, but can you quantify or like an estimate of how many lives you would actually
Well,
be
we
saving?
know that poverty is always a net negative, right? And we prove that poverty happens if any
Yeah.
economic, right? So
But
poverty.
I'm talking about innovation, not poverty.
Yeah, I mean, when the tech sector goes down, innovation goes down, which hurts the U.S. economy, which leads to that's our whole impact link.
Yeah, I understand your impact link. I'm asking for a number.
I mean, poverty is net negative, right? So it's at like X
On
amount.
innovation, you have 2 impacts. You have poverty and innovation. What is the number on innovation?
Innovation leads to poverty. That's our number.
Okay,
one.
that's just it.
Yeah,
Okay.
40.7 million lives. I'll give you that.
40.7. Okay.
Million lives.
Would you like a question?
Yeah. So, as I pointed out in rebuttal, that the police departments already have certain devices to do it. So why do we need to affirm?
Yeah, so I gave this evidence 3 times in my rebuttal. It's because law enforcement, again, could not decrypt the communication and the content in 90% of the cases they ran into. That's why you need lawful access to encrypted communications, because 90% of cases are going unsolved because they're encrypted communications. That's why you need lawful access.
Okay, so what about the cases that the indismissible in court cases? If you the evidence I read in rebuttal, if you switch to lawful access, all the evidence that they get becomes indismissible in court. What happens to those cases?
Time's up.
Okay, I'll be taking running prep time starting now. Okay, I'm ready. That was 127. Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Suva Sardani. I'm speaking first on the negation, and this is my 3-minute summary. Timer will start on my first word. The thesis of our argument is that unequal terms with unequal players creates unequal results. What I mean by this is that if small businesses begin to decline because of allowing the government to access their data, then the economy will get worse. That is why the easiest place to vote for in this round is our argument about the economy. Right now, the US is leading the tech sector in the world, and this number is only going up. However, affirming causes small businesses to collapse for 2 reasons. First is backdoors. Remember, backdoors are secret digital entry points that the government can access. The reason why affirming is bad is because if smaller businesses have to implement backdoors, our evidence tells you that small businesses have to pay a lot of money for compliance costs, which is crucial because smaller businesses already don't have the most amount of resources. The second is cyber attacks. Our evidence tells you that if there are backdoors, cyber attacks become more prominent. Why does this matter? Well, our evidence tells you that 60% of small businesses go out the market if they're hit by their cyber attack. But let's go. They make 4 responses to our case. First, they state that the government cannot decrypt 90% of the cases. They say you get access if you affirm. But again, we would say if you're solving right now, as the police already have the tools to navigate these complexities, it's a question of when, not if. But then second, they say that the FBI does not mandate backdoors. But remember, our Tolson evidence from case tells you that the United States law itself tells that the lawful access would require technology companies to provide backdoors. Third, they say that lawful access lowers cybercrime. However, they don't respond to our cyber attack argument, which tells you that 60% of small businesses go out the market if they're hit by a cyber attack, which means they don't actually solve for cybercrime. But then finally, they say that small businesses don't even use encryption, but they do use them. Small businesses use encryption to protect sensitive data like customer information, financial records, and trade secrets from hackers or unauthorized access. But go to their case. On crime as a whole, they state that criminals use social media almost entirely to carry out their plans. But judges, ask yourself this question: does the affirmative really solve? Law enforcement across the US already has powerful tools to fight crime. They don't need new ones. Research by Upturn in 2020 found that over 2,000 police agencies in all 50 states use
mobile device forensic tools which can unlock insert cell phones, which means you're already solving. But then go to their argument when they tell you that countries have used lawful access in the past. We tell you an example about the UK. Their only response to this is that the reason why that happened in the UK uniquely was because of Brexit. But the reason why we say you should still use that scenario over their example is because of Brexit. They say the Brexit was the main reason, which means the economy went down. That's our exact argument. If the economy goes down, then you're going to see all these scenarios become a lot worse. But then go to the impacts. Remember, every single one of their arguments fall flat because if the economy collapses, then you don't see any of their impacts happen, which is why you vote for an argument about the economy. Because remember, small businesses generate a lot of innovation. And innovation saves 45.7 million lives, which they don't respond to. Vote for the team who actually gives you numbers to vote on versus a team who lives in a hypothetical world.
Okay. I didn't think so hard about time. I'm just going to start that right now. Okay, I found out I'm going to fix two. Just for the judges, again, my name is Joseph Holland. I'm the first speaker from Iris Park on the affirmative. Just for in order for y'all, I'm gonna first start by going through the affirmative case, and then I'm going to compare impacts in the middle, and then I will go through the negative case. I know my partner's ready. Are my opponents ready?
Yes.
Are all my judges ready? Awesome. My time will just start my first one. Let's start on the affirmative case where we give you our one argument of crime. We tell you that right now bad actors are avoiding being caught. Crime is up 33% because the FBI and other agencies are in a blind spot. But when you vote affirmative, when you give access to this encryption, you help. You know that when you affirm, you make rule change immediately because of these examples of Australia and Belgium, when they got 28 tons of coke and they saved millions of lives. Let's look to the answers that the negative gives you in the round. 1. On solving for crime, Ginevra tells you they don't have tools, but all they say is that these people don't need new ones. 200,000 people have them. They completely ignore the fact that, okay, maybe 200,000 people have them. Still, 90% are left without the tools they need. Then, on this point of having, what they need, no, they only have tools to open the phone. They have no tools to get the messages. Criminals are smart enough to delete their messages. You need encryption to find out what the messages are. But then, on the economy being down because of Brexit, 1, I tell you that's for new tech acts, that's not economic downturn, but 2, that doesn't even matter because remember the analysis Ginevra gives you that the economy is not going to go into a downturn because of small businesses. All right, now let's just compare impacts. Right now, you want to vote for the affirmative. You want to vote for the side that makes real change, the side that saves real lives, the side that helps victims. Obviously, you're voting for our impact of saving millions of lives compared to theirs because their impact is just millions of lives being benefited by innovation. Okay, I was benefited by tech innovation from a phone. That's great, but the affirmative solves for people who are losing their lives and it helps victims. You're obviously voting for that. You're voting to save millions of lives. You're voting affirmative. With that, let's move on to this economy point. At the top, it's just that same point about they say they already have the tools. Again, 90% of law enforcement does not have the tools they need. But then, we tell you that the FBI isn't seeking a backdoor. All they tell you is that the US law means that they have to have a backdoor. There is no US law in effect that tells you that you must have a backdoor for encrypted communication. The FBI, the organization who is actually handling this change, who would be handling this resolution, is telling you that they are not seeking a backdoor. But even over on that, Ginevra tells you that lawful access doesn't have to weaken cybersecurity. She cites Schneider, which goes dropped. It tells you that tech companies could design apps in a way that allows law enforcement and security agencies access when they request it without compromising the integrity of the encryption. But then, on this small business point, all they tell you to negate this turn is that 60% of the people will go out if they are hit by cyber. That's a key word that wins us the round. They say if they go out by cyber. Remember what Ginevra tells you. When you affirm, you stop 90% of cyber attacks. So we stop these small businesses from going out. And then they tell you to vote for their evidence, but ours is from 2025, which shows you only 17% would be affected, thus to say... We are open for grant costs.
Yeah, sure. Should we all just like sit for this?
Yeah,
it's fine.
Better have force.
Any questions? Last question. Okay. Okay, cool. Is everyone ready? Alright, perfect. We'll take first question. Okay, let's go back to your crime argument as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So explain to me if the police are already making progress towards reducing crime right now, why is it uniquely better than the affirmative?
Because they're not making enough progress because they don't have the tools. We recognize that you're citing that they're making progress on these phones, but the key link is that yes, they can open these phones, but they don't have access to the messages. They need to decrypt the messages to actually solve the crime. Criminals are smart enough to delete their messages. You need to decrypt them to solve the crime.
Wait, but our evidence is saying that they are decrypting it. They're not just taking the phone and just lying around with it. They're decrypting this evidence.
Your evidence says that it says that a couple people have them, but remember that
No, we said
90%.
2,000 of them.
Right,
have them.
but remember our evidence that goes undisputed that 90% not just don't have the tech you're talking about, they don't have the technology that they actually need to fully solve the crime.
But
that's what's important.
but-
They can make all the progress they want, but they can't actually solve for the crime. They can't actually help any of these victims.
Wait, so you're saying that by affirming you're solving for the crimes before it happens?
No, that is not what we are saying at all. We are saying by affirming you can solve for these plethora of crimes, you can solve for them.
So we're
we
both
would
solving them
honestly
after.
say-
So both. Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, we would say that one, you can solve for this backlog of crimes that don't have solvency, but two, yes, if you can get a warrant, there are many instances where we see warrants for house searches before someone commits a crime. This would work the same way. If you have absolute probable cause and you get your warrant approved when you get the oversight, then yes, you could definitely prevent a crime before it starts, just like they do in the status quo. But we've been here for a minute and a half. Could we please have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. First on crime, how are these small businesses being destroyed? What is the detriment
Yeah,
to
so
them?
our argument is that when you affirm, you're required to create backdoors, and the reason why backdoors are uniquely bad for smaller businesses is because they're already more vulnerable to cyber attacks, and cyber attacks uniquely get worse if you affirm because of these backdoors.
Could I take a follow-up, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so why are we required to create backdoors?
Okay, so again, in case we give you this Tolson evidence which tells you that the United States itself requires that you create backdoors, but even if that's not true, you still look at the current world in which companies are creating backdoors. You don't really give me an alternate method as to why they're not.
You can take a question.
Okay,
or I
yeah,
can
sure.
continue to
Okay,
give you the method.
let's go back to your argument about, let's see. Okay, wait, can you explain to me this encryption evidence? I'm a little confused about the 90%.
Well, so I'll explain. So there's two different 90% in the case. The first one I talk about is that law enforcement couldn't decrypt content in 90% of the cases where they encountered communications. So this is where they're investigating a crime that happened, such as something with children or a suspected terrorist attack. Because it's encrypted, they couldn't come.
Yeah, you can finish, I'm sorry.
Okay, they couldn't come to an agreement and they couldn't figure out and prosecute the person because the communications were encrypted. So they had no burden of evidence.
Time is up.
Okay. Alright, we're going to use the remaining prep time. We have, I think, 47 seconds left. Yep.
51.
51. Okay, thank you, Sam. Alright, timer starts now.
Okay, judges, just a quick reintroduction. I'm a DT event counsel. I'm second speaker for Ardrey, Kell, SV. Just the structure of my speech, I'm going to go on their case, on our case. Is everyone ready? Timer starts in 3, 2, 1. Judges, this round has gotten really messy, so let me paint the best picture of this round. At the end of this round, the simplest place to vote is the negation. To recap, when the economy plummets, you won't see any of their impacts happening because the government will be focusing on rejuvenating the economy rather than trafficking or stopping anything they want. Remember, when the economy collapses, so does funding for all the things the affirmative seeks to achieve. Historically, when it comes to government rerouting of funding, things such as stopping drugs from entering through the border, or police funding is the first thing to get defunded. Which means, as a judge, if you want to solve for what the AF wants, you vote for the neg because a steady economy generates money for saving kids and stopping trafficking. Now, on their case. First, the well-being of the economy is the number one thing that you can tangibly vote off of. Remember, the AF lives in a speculative world where they think that lawful access is the end-all, do-all for all crime happening in the U.S. But that's not true, because when the economy crashes, so does focus on crime. Again, look to our evidence on the UK economy going down and that spike in child crime. Again, you can cross-apply this to the United States, because when the economy crashes, so does crime in the United States. They say this, so we bring this onto our side. Remember, our evidence tells you that 2,000 police agencies in the United States use mobile device forensic tools, which can unlock, search, and decrypt all cell phones and evidence they find. They say that they gain 90% access to stopping crime, but they completely miss the point that the status quo is improving the decryption ability, and weigh the pros and cons of this. Remember, if you vote AF, you kill the economy, but if you vote neg, you stay in a world where improvement is constantly happening. Remember, the evidence that I read in rebuttal on how third-party companies, when they use lawful access by the Fourth Amendment, anything they submit to the court is considered indismissible, meaning they can't use that information, which harms kids and it's a net negative. Now, on impacts, they say our argument only helps benefit lives. Not true. It's also saving lives. Innovation as a whole has saved 40.7 million lives, which means you need to vote the team that saves the most lives, which is us. The reason why their evidence falls short is because it gets worse in the affirmative. Because with worse economy, they don't solve for anything they ask, because you need funding for everything. And remember, backdoors are bad. You vote neg.
We're gonna take our remaining prep time. Oh, 11.
111.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Ginevra Woltelina, the second speaker from Myers Park on the affirmative. Is anybody not ready? Okay. Time will begin on my first word. Just off-time roadmap, I'm going our case and then our opponent's case. Let's start off on our case, where we tell you about crime. We tell you right now, bad actors are avoiding being caught. Crime is skyrocketing, up 33%. Law enforcement agencies have a blind spot right now, and their information is incomplete due to the fact that they don't have access to encrypted communications. The affirmative solves. You've seen this model in Australia, you've seen this model in Belgium. The impacts are millions of lives saved from all these heinous crimes, and especially hundreds of thousands from fentanyl overdoses every single year. Our opponents give you one final response on our case. They say the status quo is improving decryption now. But remember the warranting Joseph gives you, that it can only get to a certain point, and you can't completely decrypt a phone. That is the whole reason we are debating today's resolution about encrypted access. That is why 90% of cases have been stopped because there's no access to these encrypted communications. But we would say, on the negative case, it is game over for the neg by the end of the summary because they failed to respond to 4 answers I gave you and Joseph brings through. We first tell you that law enforcement doesn't have the resources to decrypt the communication, and they don't have to weaken cybersecurity. Remember Schneider's amazing analysis that companies can design apps in a way that allows law enforcement and security agencies access when they request it. You don't have to create a backdoor. But even so, the biggest response here that you value throughout the whole round that goes unresponded to, and by then, is that the cybercrime reduces in the affirmative world. Because cybercrime is exceptionally high right now, but 90% of all encrypted threats are from cybercrime. And you solve this because you're creating more encryption. Then, the US is the global tech leader, meaning that people aren't going to leave the US businesses, which solves for their whole case. But overall, when you go to the analysis and you compare the impacts, they give you the impact of 40.7 million lives. This is throughout all of human history. Obviously, they're going to have a higher number from us if you're taking an innovation that's going throughout all of human history. But again, we still tell you that we're saving millions of people every year from heinous crimes such as child trafficking and terrorism, and we're saving people from overdoses. You vote for the negative, or for the affirmative. Good round, guys.
Great round.
Good job.